Well, it's certainly good to see each one today. Happy for the presence of all. In the lesson today, I'd like to continue with the series of lessons we've been looking at, the works of the flesh that are in Galatians chapter 5. And in the lesson today, I'd like to follow in order and look at the sins of excess or drunkenness and carousing that are mentioned by the Apostle Paul as some of the example of works of the flesh that will keep us out of the kingdom of heaven. And so we know that, it just is amazing to me, generation after generation, going back, to the time of Noah, we read about people being intoxicated and having trouble with alcohol. And, of course, alcohol is the thing that is talked about, I guess, as the drug was being used at that time, but the same principles that condemn and make alcohol wrong and make drunkenness wrong when it comes to that substance would also apply to marijuana, or it would apply to any of people taking speed or whatever kind of drugs it might be. I've had a lot of people in my family wrecked their lives with alcohol, and some have lost their mind because of the use of illegal drugs. And I've had friends that got addicted working nights to speed, and that became a problem in their life. So, there are all kinds of different sins like these that we could talk about. In the scriptures we'll be reading have to do with what alcohol does to you, and maybe it's the most prevalent one of all that robs people of their self-control and of their sober thinking. There are all kinds of different artwork. Have a couple of pictures there on that first slide that come from the 1800s that, when people were having the temperance movement in our country to try to show all of the evils of alcoholism and so on that was ravaging the country. Talking about the demon rum and a century before that. It's just as far back in human history as you can go, this same problem has been with us. And we need to stay away from any of these substances that cause us to lose our clear thinking and self-control, and that can become addictive and take charge over our lives. And we can see drunkenness, this methe is the word in Greek, and drunkenness, Arndt Gingrich's Greek lexicon says, with dissipation and drunkenness, intoxication, cause to become intoxicated, to get drunk. When you look up drunk in the English dictionary, it's intoxicated, inebriated, overwhelmed or overpowered by alcoholic liquor to the point of losing self-control over one's faculties. To intoxicate, or intoxication, means to inebriate, to make drunk, to excite the spirits to a kind of delirium, and in medicine, a poison, or to have a poison. And alcohol is described in the scriptures as a poison. Is it something to drink poison in moderation? I wouldn't think so. If it's poison, you need to leave it alone altogether, and you won't have a problem. To inebriate is to disorder the senses of, to stupefy, which means to make unable to think or to feel, to excite, to exhilarate. So, short pleasure but long-term damage is done when a person gets involved with alcohol and other drugs. Carousing, revilings is the way the next word is translated that goes together with it. Komos, the word for a joyous meal or banquet, excessive feasting with drunkenness. So it's a drunken party or a drinking party. And we know that these things go on every week, sometimes several nights a week. And people get into all kinds of trouble and difficulties and become irresponsible engaged in these things. Thayer says about the word, it's a nocturnal or riotous procession of half-drunken or frolicsome fellows who after supper parade through the streets with torches and music in honor of Bacchus or some other deity, and sing and play before the houses of their male and female friends, hence used generally of excessive feasting and drinking parties that are protracted till late at night and indulge in revelry. It's used in the plural there in Galatians and means carousing, rivalry, orgy with drunkenness. And you can see the word used in Romans 13:13 about those works of darkness that are described there. Galatians 5:21. And in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 3, it's translated drinking bouts or drinking parties again. So carousing is to drink heavily, heartily, to participate in a carousal. A carousal is a rough, noisy feast or drinking party. Revelry, another way that is translated in our English translations. A reveling, boisterous, merrymaking, noisy festivity. Of course, we have Mardi Gras and we have all of these different things on New Year's night, and those are all carousals usually that are involved in those drunken parties. An orgy in ancient Greece and Rome, feasting and wild celebration and worship of certain gods, any wild, riotous, merrymaking, overindulgence in any activity. So we are to be people of sober mind, self-controlled, servants of God, people dedicated to setting a good example and living a holy life, and being involved with intoxicating substances and mind-altering drugs is not a part of being a child of God. And it has slain its thousands, 10,000s, millions, this type of activity. What are some of the symptoms and effects of drunkenness according to God's Word? And God's Word is true. God cannot lie. He's been trying to tell people for generation after generation not to be involved in these things. And yet we still have to preach on it because it's still an increasing problem in the society around us. It seems nobody learns from the past and from other people's experience. Chiefs are going to be dealt with by God's providence and punished in the book of Job. He's going to make them stagger like a drunken man. Men at sea in a storm, it talks about them, they reel and stagger like a drunken man. Who has redness of eyes, the writer of Proverbs asks, in talking about someone who drinks alcohol. In Egypt, in Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 14, they were going to be punished as a drunken man staggers in his vomit. And the sword of the Lord is going to come upon either Israel or other nations, and when that sword comes, they shall drink and stagger and go mad. All of those things are taken from what happens when you drink alcohol, and what kind of consequences are there to be involved in that kind of activity. And it's used as such a negative. It is a poison. In Hosea 7 and verse 5, on the day of our king, the princes become sick with the heat of wine. He stretches out his hand with scoffers. So it is something that poisons. It makes a person sick. And many of us, unfortunately, growing up, being around others that are involved in this, we've seen the sickness. In Habakkuk 2 and verse 15, woe to you who make your neighbor drink, who mix in your venom, even to make them drunk, so as to look on their nakedness. The idea of date rape, how old is that? That goes back all the way back to these Old Testament passages, getting somebody drunk so you can take advantage of them, right? That's exactly what still goes on. People mix up different things in the drinks as it's described there. So you think, wow, there's some new form of evil or wickedness in the world? No, there's nothing new under the sun, Solomon said. All of these things that we're dealing with, people have been dealing with since the very beginning. These types of excesses, these consequences of alcohol. It's the number 3 health problem in the United States. All of these different problems, if you think about younger people, it's, I'm sure, the number 1 cause of death. I think we had over 100,000 people die from fentanyl last year, and that, who knows if that's not a low number. It's behind cancer and heart disease, but it's a major factor in both of those. When you get to looking at risk factors, alcohol is in so many different things that people are afflicted with. It affects you physically, starting from the very first drink. I know they used to do things in school or in driving classes where they would talk about, experiments where you have one drink and you try to drive around the cone, and after the very first drink, the person can't drive straight and can't miss all the cones and so on. It starts affecting you immediately. So what's a safe amount that a person could drink? Well, none. That'd be the safe amount. We can see that it attacks your self-control and judgment. If you continue to drink, the effects become more and more. You have blurred speech and vision, and your coordination is destroyed. Your reflexes are slowed. You learn and understand you can't do those things. It's impaired. You have memory loss. Just every different part of your body, you can find how this poison works. I see these famous actors and dancers and things that you think about look like such great athletes, and then they get pancreatic cancer and die. And what was one of the main things? They were drinking. That's what caused that cancer to be there and killed them at a young age. So we know the damage that it can do. This loss of understanding and balance and judgment is talked about in Isaiah 28 in verses 7 through 8. They had their leaders of government and religion that were involved in drinking, and we do today. And these also reel with wine and stagger from strong drink. The priest and the prophet reel with strong drink. They are confused by wine. They stagger from strong drink. They reel while having visions. They totter when rendering judgment, for all the tables are full of filthy vomit without a single clean place. So you think, oh, well, the good old days. There weren't good old days, were there? No matter where you go back, you got this problem. Back there in 750 BC, Israel was eaten up with alcoholism and problems among their leaders that ruled their nation. We're told in Hosea 4 and verse 11, harlotry, wine, and new wine take away the understanding. So we must be those that set a better example of self-control in our own life, save ourselves, and then be a good example to other people, not to be involved and suffer these consequences. It affects man's happiness and prosperity, and ultimately, if you get involved with alcohol, it'll bite you in the end. And many a person went along, they seemed like they were doing fine on their job and everything was going well, and then all of a sudden they find out that it has control over their life. It's ruining everything in their life. And we need to take heed to what the Scriptures tell us about. In Proverbs 23, 29 through 32, a book written to give us wisdom, where God the Father, through Solomon, is talking to all of us as His children. Who has woe? Ask yourself the question. Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Well, what's the answer to all of those questions? A person that just says, woe, woe, my life's a mess. That says, oh, I'm full of sorrow. The one that's constantly getting into fights and contentions and rows. And the one that has wounds from other people because they don't act right, or they're stumbling around damaging themselves because of their reeling and redness of eye. It says those who linger over wine, those who go to taste mixed wines. Though, do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. At the last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. How terrible is a bite from a serpent? Well, that's the kind of pain and sorrow that comes from getting involved with alcohol. What does the writer of wisdom say? Don't even look at it when it's sparkling in the cup. It's sparkling like, the twinkle in some seductress's eyes when she looks at you. There's that drink. It looks so good, and it looks like it will bring you all this happiness and joy. But what does it really do? It bites you in the end. It stings you. It causes you all of these sorrows. Poverty is the result if one continues in the use of it. In Proverbs 23, 17 through 21, do not let your heart envy sinners, but live in the fear of the Lord always. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Listen, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Do not be with heavy drinkers of wine, or with gluttonous eaters of meat, for the heavy drinker and the glutton will come to poverty, and drowsiness will clothe a man with rags. So he points out what happens so many times, that it leads eventually to where it destroys all that you have and all of the hopes that you want. In Proverbs 21:17, he who loves pleasure will become a poor man. He who loves wine and oil will not become rich. Well, that's not the way to have success in life. It's a depressant that makes a bad mood worse, leads to the loss of self-respect, a don't care attitude about the things that you do or don't do, causes family problems, loss of jobs and loss of friends, and major factor in suicide, and it is going up a great deal just in the last 3 years. There's been many suicides taking place. And when you look into it, there's some kind of substance abuse that's going on, whether it's alcohol or drugs, that are numbing people to what they're doing. Moral and spiritual effects. It leads to injustice. We see that in the practice of those that are in positions of authority, that are judges. We think about some of the crazy rulings that judges give. Probably look into their personal life, we find out they have trouble with alcohol or some other substance abuse themselves. In Proverbs 31:4 and 5, it is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to desire strong drink, lest they drink and forget what is decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. So we have to realize how it affects the judgment. It says you shouldn't have it if you're a king. Well, what if you're a head of a house? You shouldn't have it either, right? What if you're somebody that is a neighbor? You don't want to lose justice and know how to treat people right, no matter what relationship that you have. It provokes, in Isaiah 5:23, who justifies the wicked for a bribe and takes away the rights of the ones who is in the right. So it gives some example there again of those drinkers in Isaiah 5. Provokes anger and contentious brawling spirit. There's a lot of different kinds of drunks, and one of them is the angry drunk that wants to fight, that wants to brawl, wants to attack people that wouldn't ordinarily do so. I've had people in my life, perfectly nice people, until they start drinking, and then they're as mean as you can find. They'll beat up anybody, That's just, it takes control over their mind. In Proverbs 20 and verse 1, wine is a mocker, strong drink a brawler, and whoever is intoxicated by it is not wise. Well, we're commanded to have wisdom, aren't we? Isn't that our duty? And taking these substances will turn us into a mocker or a brawler. The U.S. Department of Justice, it reports that 54% of people convicted of violent crimes in state prisons have used alcohol just before the offense. I think that's probably way low. That's probably a low number. And then you add in all the different drugs that people are taking if it wasn't alcohol. Almost all of them. We hear about these school shootings that are so horrible. Almost every one they come out with, they were either heavy users of marijuana or drinking or prescription drug abuse or whatever was going on at the same time, that they flip out and have no control and kill people. What's the connection with so much of the crime and violence that we see in our society? People want to blame a lot of root causes. Well, one of them is substance abuse and alcohol. That's one of the root causes of these things. If you want to get rid of that, you need to get rid of the stimulant behind it. Some more moral and spiritual effects. Do you think the Bible has a lot to say? In this lesson, I'm not reading all the verses that the Bible has. I'm reading, a sampling of them. But from one end of the Scriptures to the other, this is condemned. And yet it goes on. And people still think somehow it's going to work out different for them if they get involved in these things. In Ephesians 5 and verse 18, and do not get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. So as you drink wine, what do you get from that? In their religious services among the pagans, they would use drinking and alcohol and stuff to fire up their spirits to worship. It says, not in the church. We don't use stimulants to fire ourselves up to serve God. We sing to one another filled with the Spirit's influence. The Holy Spirit's teaching is what motivates us to want to sing with thanksgiving in our hearts to God. What is drinking? He says drinking is dissipation. You're just dissolving yourself, disintegrating yourself when you get involved with these substances. It's destroying your body and mind and your spirituality. It's allied with gambling and lasciviousness and indecency. You just think about all of the companions that go along with drinking. It's associated with every type of sin that you can think of. In Job 3 and verse 3, they have also cast lots for my people, trading a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. You think, well, this human trafficking in young children and things that are going on in our society, that we've reached a new low, and it's certainly a low. But look at Israel back there in the days when the book of Joel was written. They were doing the same thing. People have not changed. In Genesis 9 and verse 21, and he drank the wine and became drunk and uncovered himself inside his tent. Noah, after all the good things he had done, he still was imprudent when it came to wine, and after the flood that happened. So the primary effects of social drinking are loss of restraint, good judgment. You hear so many of these programs and stories about different young girls that have gone missing or people that have gone missing, and well, they were at a party and they were drinking, and then the next thing they lost their judgment or awareness or whatever, and they end up being taken advantage of and go missing. Sexual indulgences and fornication, adultery, rape, and crime associated with alcohol and drinking and drugs, along with all different kinds of felony charges related to alcohol. Again, it's the cause of divorce, child abuse, molestation, juvenile delinquency, and talk about all of the different rapes and things that are going on college campuses. One of these studies, 70-80% of those assaults involved alcohol. And again, that probably is low. That's probably a low number. It deadens spirituality. And it deadens you physically. It starts destroying your health and life. We're told in Isaiah 5 and verse 12, and their banquets are accompanied by lyre and harp and tambourine and flute and by wine, but they do not pay attention to the deeds of the Lord, nor do they consider the works of His hands. Now, when you're involved in this party lifestyle and that kind of activity, you don't think about God. It blanks out doing your duty for God and the things that God has to teach and wants for your life. Those things get deadened and are drowned out. You become callous towards religious influences in your life to where you fall away from the Lord. So it's blamed for over 100,000 deaths each year, I found on one page. And again, that number I'm sure is way low. 5% of all deaths from disease of the circulatory system, 15% of all deaths from disease of the respiratory system, 30% of all deaths from accidents caused by fire and flame, 30% of all accidental drownings. We hear about that every weekend. Most times that's associated with alcohol. 30% of all suicides, 40% of all deaths due to accidental falls, 45% of all deaths in automobile accidents, 60% of all homicides. We have some different numbers on alcohol deaths, drug deaths, suicide deaths, all deaths connected there. It's just going up, up, up right now in our society. We need to be teaching people the truth, encouraging our children to be sober-minded and recognize the dangers of sin. We're to make sin visible by teaching the truth about the consequences of what sin does, so that people aren't ignorant of the consequences. We are not to get drunk. It's specifically condemned. But rather we're to be on guard and be sober at all times. Be alert for all the different temptations to our soul and to our life. In Luke chapter 21 and verse 34, be on guard that your heart may not be weighed down. How do you get your heart weighed down? With dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of life, and that day come on you suddenly like a trap. Isn't he talking to people just like all of us that are sitting here today? That you can get caught up in this. I've seen it over and over in different congregations throughout the country that it's true, that there's things going on that we don't know about, and people's lives are being wasted away in secret and with drunkenness, and they're not prepared for the day they're going to meet God. In 1 Timothy 5, or Thessalonians 5, 6, and 7, in Paul's first letter that we have recorded for us in our Bibles. So then, let us not sleep as others do, but let us be alert and sober. For those who sleep do their sleeping at night, and those who get drunk at night. We're not to be people of the night and the darkness and associated with drunkenness and being not alert and not aware, but we're to be people of the daytime that are sober, that are clear thinking, that are always on the alert to avoid spiritual and physical dangers. So we need to watch for the coming of the Lord. It's an element in the old way of life to be involved in drinking and alcohol and drugs. Those things should be abandoned. We're to be always aware and not drunk, and take care of the activities of the day, so we can be faithful. The Bible insists on self-control and sobriety. One of the fruit of the Spirit that we'll study, Lord willing, later is self-control. And it's the very opposite of being in any way intoxicated or drunk. In Galatians 5:23, we're to be gentle, self-controlled. Against such things there is no law. In 2 Peter 1:6, and in your knowledge, self-control, and in your self-control, perseverance, and in your perseverance, godliness, these virtues that will keep us from ever stumbling so that we fall away from God, is self-control. When Paul discussed the truths of the gospel with Felix, we're told in Acts 24 and verse 25, and as he was discussing righteousness and self-control and the judgment to come, Felix became frightened and said, "Go away for the present, and when I find time, I will summon you." Paul talked about the religious duty before God we have to be in control of ourselves, to be constantly in control of our thoughts and our tongue and our temper and our action. And if you're intoxicated, you can't do those things. One can easily commit sin if you don't have self-control. And we see it all around us. People making life-changing mistakes that ruin their life because they weren't clear thinking. Our own passions and desires draw us away and entice us. And those powers are pulling on us, and we certainly don't want to have our self-control weakened by taking any substance. We've got to control ourselves to avoid sin. Keeping the soul out of heaven is what the Bible says that abuse of these intoxicating substances will do to you, whether it's alcohol or drugs. In 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 10, here's things that a Christian should not be: not thieves, nor the covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers shall inherit the kingdom of God. You're not going to get the final reward if you're involved in these things. We are to abstain for spiritual well-being. We have the example of what a priest was to do in the Old Testament times, because they were offering sacrifices to God, and they needed to be sure they offered those sacrifices correctly. They could all teach other people. Isn't every Christian a priest? Isn't that what we're taught in the New Testament? You think, oh, that was a high standard for priests. They were not to touch alcohol. We are God's spiritual priests today. We offer spiritual sacrifices. We're to teach the gospel to people. So listen to what was given back there at that time. Do not drink wine or strong drink, neither you nor your sons with you, when you come into the tent of meeting, so that you may not die. It is a perpetual statute throughout your generations, and so as to make distinction between the holy and profane, and between the unclean and the clean, and so as to teach the sons of Israel all the statutes which the Lord has spoken to them through Moses. When you think about those priests and coming in offering strange sacrifice, Nadab and Abihu, and then they got struck down by God. In the same context here, it talks about don't drink before you go in to offer sacrifice. Makes you wonder, were they drinking before they went in there and offered the wrong thing? Kind of could be implied, right? That maybe that was part of why they did what they did. They didn't treat God as holy. Well, we want to treat God holy in our life. In 1 Corinthians 10, 31 and 32, whether then you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense, or don't cause a stumbling block for other people by anything you do, either to Jew or to Greek or to the church of God. We don't want to lead anyone into this activity. By our example, in Luke 17, 1 and 2, and he said to his disciples, it is inevitable that stumbling blocks should come, but woe to him through whom they come. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the sea than that he should cause one of these little ones to stumble. We have an obligation to all people to be a positive influence for good, to set a good example, to help lead people out of trouble and in the right path. And you can't do that drinking alcohol. You're going to lead people down the road to destruction in that way. So let's all take heed to what Paul tells us. If we want to go to heaven, let's lay aside these works of the flesh. Well, at this time, if you'll bow with me, we'll have a word of prayer and we'll be dismissed to our classes.